Hello and welcome to Real Life, Real Love. I am Sarah Michelle with Happiness and Heals, and I am a sex, love, and intimacy coach. This is Hayley Henderson with me. Do you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Hi, my name is Hayley, and I am a stylist. I'm a fashion stylist. I help the average person love their clothes and love their body.
Yeah. So today we are here to talk about the hero instinct, like what that is, why you should care about it, especially if you're a feminine woman who wants to be in a relationship with a masculine man. You want to experience that polarity in your intimate and romantic relationships. But I will say, like today we're going to talk about it from that perspective, but I will say in my own life, I also use the hero instinct with other men. Like my father, my brother's a little bit, one of my brothers, um, neighbors, like that sort of thing, because men like to feel masculine. And it's something that's like, I just want to say not present in our society today. Does that feel true to you when I say that? Like it feels like we had this kind of shift with feminism, and in our rush to equality, we kind of created this sameness
Hmm.
instead of independence and uniqueness. But we also became very independent as women. And I think that that was a great step forward from like dependence and codependence and that sort of stuff. But what we're really looking for is moving all the way forward into interdependence, where we can come to it as who we are, be accepted for who we are, and not have to be the same, not have to like keep up with the boys or any of those old things. Like just because I want to be treated equally doesn't mean I want to have to do the things that boys do, or that I want men, maybe I should say, or that I want men to be doing what I do. Like I just want to be able to show up and be who I am, the gift that I am, right?
Yeah,
So um what's happened in this independence is that we don't activate this hero instinct in the guys that we're dating or the guys we're married to, and they need it.
yeah,
And when they have it, it creates a deep connection and a magnetism with them towards you. And tell you what, if you can learn how to activate this and do it authentically,
yeah.
yeah, like authentically is very important. We'll be talking about that at some point today. But if you can genuinely do it, they're going to love you. They're not going to want to be around anyone else because they're going to be drawn to that feeling, the way you make them feel like a man when they're around you. And before we get going too far, I just want to share that this term was first coined by James Bauer. He put out a book a while back called His Secret Obsession. So if you want to go any further with this beyond our conversation or beyond like a Google search or something like that, consider checking out that book, because he was the first psychologist, I believe, that brought this up for discussion, I guess.
Yeah. I think it's important. Like there's a lot of conversation online, and we see and we feel ourselves like if you're struggling with dating or you can't work out why she's got that man, or if a guy has cheated, or like various things. Sometimes, like when you think about it, you just go, it just makes no sense. I started looking at this many years ago and thinking, I don't get it. Like she was acting so helpless, but she's not. And it bothered me. And so the more research I did into it, the more I thought, are you kidding me? So I started testing it. I was in an amazing like office environment where I had 40 field staff who were men. They did a trade, literally dig in the ground. And when I was going through so much of this research, I would often just like test theories while I was at work. Like I did a 30-day orgasm challenge to see if people would like these men would stand closer to me or not, like little things, because this lady. So I was like, oh, we'll see. It's true. Even the guys that were like less friendly with me would get quite close to me during this. I did 90 days, but I was really surprised. And so what, like while I was in this work environment, I tested this kind of hero concept as well and researched even into the hero's journey, which I found so fascinating. Like anybody who's done an online business, you get taught you've got to take your clients on the hero's journey. And what if that was in relationships? What if, what we're doing isn't quite, I don't know, not everybody came from like a good background, right? Like we didn't have the best childhood necessarily, or it's different. It's different for our parents as it was for us, and men and women want different things because of the dependence on ourselves when we, break up from the origin relationship with where our children came from. Or
So before you go too far, can you clarify what the hero's journey is for people who aren't familiar with that? Because the only way I'm familiar with it is through like a marketing term.
yeah,
So
well, the journey is something that we instinctively like. It's Joseph Campbell has like an awesome he went, I think he's one of the first people that went and did the research into understanding how far back the hero's journey goes and like storytelling and stuff. We like when you even listen to a short fairy tale, we want to hear the end works out. We want to hear the beginning. It's the underdog, the unlikely hero. And this is the typical thing in all movies as well, which is why we know the end of most Hollywood movies, because it's actually the hero's journey. It's the underdog. They get like a challenge. They end up, stumbling along because they're not perfect. They take their hurdles and they keep, a teacher comes along, or, the girl comes along, or something happens, or they learn their lesson. And then at some point, they just go, oh my goodness, I get it. And that was, when they get go after the challenge and they actually accomplish it. In the story, they become king, or in the story, they get the girl, or in the story, they defeat the bad guy. And at the end, they like live happily ever after. And that's like the hero's journey, like going on that. In my mind, it's a circle, but it's probably really not. It's very messy.
yeah, experiencing a problem, going through the challenge of solving it, and then experiencing the resolution at the
Yeah,
end.
we know that. And like we also, like, even in writing, which I find fascinating, that communication piece of like static information and trying to communicate with somebody to get the message across, especially because I've worked in such male dominated industries after working in fashion and walking into male dominated industries and then wanting to come back to fashion. I was like, well, how do I get them to do what I want? Like, for me, at the end of the day, my job was always to get them to say yes, and their job was to say yes. And so I was like, well, how do we do this? Because I got to the point where I was like, here's your job, and they'd say no. And so things like the hero's journey I found really fascinating, and things like activating the hero's instinct really fascinating, because they wanted to save the day. They wanted to, fix a leak, do all the chaos, and then at the end they wanted, a bit of the kudos. That, like, a lot of people are starting to realize that a financial reward, the extrinsic value of a job, is not enough. And inside the job, it's the intrinsic value. And inside the intrinsic value is things like, when you're working with men, you can activate that hero's instinct in them in terms of asking them to do things that they can do, and asking in such a way where they're like, I can do that. And they save you. Like, and the guys that I used to work with in this particular business would laugh and still say yes. I'd stand on one side of the warehouse in my high heels and my skirt, and there's a yellow line, health and safety, cannot go past it. I'm not a good yeller. I cannot yell to save myself. My voice does not go loud. Other side of the warehouse, there's somebody I need. I've tried. I tap the person next to me and say, can you please yell for me? They laugh, but they do it. The people on the other side know exactly what is going on. They all started to realize that I was testing all their theories. This guy yells at him, gets his attention. He walks over. He knows exactly, because I'm standing on the yellow line. This guy was my hero. Like, I've activated it in him to help me with something that, like, I could try, but it was not going to be as effective. His voice, I was like, can we just borrow that? And the guy on the other side of the warehouse also was going to listen to his voice faster than he was going to listen to mine, which is another conversation in itself.
Yeah, so you said, and I've been writing stuff down as you've been talking just to remember this, but you said, how do I get them to do what I want? And I think that's such an important question, and understanding that that doesn't have to be manipulation.
Yeah.
And
Well,
it also isn't the same as like some women will say, well, if I have to ask for what I want, then it's not as fun for me, or it's not a surprise, it's not fulfilling, but it's not true in this situation, because what you're doing is you're not specifically saying like, I want him to get me pink roses. So what can I do to get him to get me pink roses? Which would feel much more like what I just described. What you're doing is you're activating that hero instinct in him. So then he's showing up in these provider and protector roles. And so he's going to start doing things naturally to try to please you. When you activate his hero instinct by showing him that he's making you happy and that you're feeling fulfilled, he's going to be charged up by that, and he's going to be looking for more ways to make you happy, because it makes him feel good to come home to a happy person. It makes him feel good to take someone to dinner who's super happy next to him, because
Makes them,
happy is sexy.
yeah, absolutely. They love it. They know, like the people that I used to work with, I was a single mom, I was struggling with stuff with my ex. And so they knew that there was no question of what my capabilities were. But they loved that I would ask. I was like, hey. And they would find it fascinating. They would absolutely find it fascinating. And I mean, what I believe, this is their job. They want to do their job. But sometimes communication, or they're too busy having conversation, or whatever is getting in the way. Or I even discovered that sometimes in front of other people, men don't like their hero instinct activated. There's a couple of introverted guys that I used to work with. So I observed, and I knew the minute that I walked, so I'd stand in front of like 30 of them and say, I've got this emergency. I need somebody on site within an hour. And they're all like, ha, 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 in the lunchroom, like having a drink, like a coffee or a Milo or whatever. And I'd walk away, and I knew someone was going to leave that lunchroom at some point in time within the next 2 minutes and come and accept the job from me if I walk back to my desk. And every single time somebody did that, because not everybody wanted to do it in front of the other people, because it can be seen as weak, which is what makes like having that hero activation thing in private and doing that so that they are fueled by it and know they're going to get rewarded. Because it's like an energetic thing. It's like a biochemical feedback. They feel sad.
Increases their testosterone.
Yeah. And that makes them stronger, and then they can do more things for you.
Yeah. So to be clear for anybody watching, activating the hero instinct, what it is a man needs to feel needed. And I understand that for our inner feminist, like that just like puts on the brakes, and it makes you go, oh my God, no, but I don't need him. I want him. I know how to have my own career. I know how to pay my own bills. I know how to provide my own safety, all these sort of things. Well, that's that that's that independence that I was talking about earlier. And we want to move past that stage. And basically we want to say, yes, I know that I'm capable of doing all these things. And actually my partner knows that I'm capable of all these things too. And that's sexy to him, but he still needs to feel needed and wanted. And you can do this in ways that are like you don't want to be needy about it. He doesn't want you to be needy about it. He doesn't want you to be the little princess that isn't capable of anything. But if you can say to him, honey, can you get that from the top shelf? Or like as you're cooking and stuff like that, honey, can you just open this jar for me real quick? Like things like that. He feels good because he feels like he's adding value to your life. He feels like he's providing. There's another word that's like on the tip of my tongue I'm trying to get to right here.
But it's also true though. He actually is adding to your life. Like,
yeah, because
helping.
Like for example, I can do my own laundry, but having him do my laundry feels good. That was a bad example because I actually don't like to let people do my laundry. I can't stand it. Nobody does their laundry the same way as me. I can't do it. But anyway, okay, give me a better example of something, Hayley, that because I can just feel it in the women I coach. I know I get this resistance right away, even though they want to be in their feminine in a relationship. It's just like, no, I don't need him though, and I know how to do this. Now, listen, if you're in a relationship and you truly don't need him whatsoever, and you are more capable of providing your safety and everything else that he might be providing through this hero instinct, then you're probably with the wrong person.
Yeah. It's a team.
Because he should be able to, he's not adding value at that point. And also you're not going to be able to step out of your masculine to enjoy your feminine very long, if at all, because you don't trust him. You don't trust him to step up and do that because you know that you're better at it.
Yeah.
So that's just an indication you're in the wrong relationship if that happens.
That's true. I mean, I watched actually a video yesterday or this morning that was talking about how to make her happy. Just make plans. Like there's a part of, and a lot of men that I've spoken to over the years, they're like, well, she doesn't need me or anything like that, or they know I'm super independent, but they feel needed in my presence if they're paying attention. They're like, oh, I'm like, yeah, there's so many things you can do. I have like a toolkit, but if you could do that for me, do you know what that would do for me? That frees me up to not be what we talked about last week, the container. I can just be the love, which actually comes more naturally to me,
Yes.
like flow and relax. Like my shoulders aren't so close to my ears. I'm not clenching my jaw. I'm not doing all these things. Like, and I know sort of related, but not. But like if us women keep staying in these strong, masculine orientated roles, we end up in burnout. Like I watched a guy who was talking about how he's like, what happens to the women that start out really strong in their careers, like build multi-million and billion-dollar businesses? Why do we stop hearing about them after a few years? And he's like, they end up burnt out. Like literally, our bodies are not physically, and I don't have the references, sorry, but our bodies are not physically capable of producing the same amount of consistent energy required to do for 30 days straight. We know that. We can't go to work 5 days a week, 4 weeks of the month. Our body has a different cycle. And what happens is we actually, and this guy, it panicked me, and I was like, I need to really make sure I'm like on top of this. What happens is we produce extra cortisol and other depleting biochemicals in our body, and that slowly eats and erodes at our internal organs. We don't live as long. We die sooner. And the man who's able to, and we want this, and they want the balance and their relationship, and it can be in a business dynamic, it can be in a work situation, it can be at home. We're designed to want to do this. This is, why our conversations work. We're designed to have conversations. Like our conversations work because we're not both talking at once. One's holding the container and the other one is, filling it with stuff. And then we'll switch roles and we'll ask for that help. It's what we're doing. We're asking for help. I'm activating a piece of you to, be my hero, and vice versa. And in relationships that work, there is that balance, that age-old yin and yang, that age-old thing with men's biochemicals in their bodies when they're younger are stronger, and they have this durability that we don't get access to till later in life. Like women in their 40s, 50s, and older start to go, like, stop caring what other people think and start making different authoritative decisions. Their body literally changes and goes through menopause, and they actually get an increase of testosterone. And then they can actually go and be their own hero. And men's bodies go from, this strong, young, can do anything, high in testosterone stuff. And then they start to step more into their, I forget, it's estrogen as they get older, and their physical appearance changes. They get softer and lovelier. Like we don't come across like the average granddad as being aggressive, but we hear when he was younger, when he was a dad, he was aggressive. And those marriages that worked, those women will tell you, like the grandma, she will say, I asked him to do these things for many years, even though I could completely do it. He loved it. He felt needed. He'd go and, my grandparents, he'd go and dig her gardens. Like she wanted new gardens. He'd literally go and dig up the lawn and create a new garden. They, had that thing, that balance for each other. And that created stability in them because there's not like one person heavier than the other. And relationships as they evolve, which I think is important, every 10 years we renew our relationships, or at least we should. Esther Perel, oh my goodness, like groundbreaking work.
Mm-hmm.
And if you visit this and look at things, like the hero's journey and activating that hero instinct, you can actually see and looking at other people's relationships, like how did they get, like in, Esther Perel's work, how did they get over infidelity? What did they do? Or what did long-term relationships, what did they do? They don't say anything new to us. They don't say, well, I was fiercely independent and I went and built this business and I did all these things. She had the support of a man. What did he do? Often if she was out like building these businesses, he was at home tending to the children or something like that. It works because he was being her hero. She could come home and like melt. And then, that's when he could step up and, put his arms around her and be like, you're safe now, baby. And they would keep doing that. What?
You make me melt just saying that.
Right?
Okay, so this hero instinct, let me give a few examples for anybody watching. So you've seen us say, we've talked about anything around asking for help, whether it's big things or small things. Asking for help is great. Celebrating his wins, anything he is accomplishing at work, or like if he gets something done for you. And I'm not talking about this in like sometimes when I talk to people, they picture it in more of like when you're training a dog sort of way. This is not about training him. This is not training. And that's a different energy. It might be subtle for you, but you need to look at that and get out of that, because we're not training or manipulating or anything negative here. We're literally, it's almost like speaking to him in his love language, right? Like it's doing something for him that he intrinsically needs. It's meeting his need for this.
And
so celebrating what he's accomplishing at work. If he has any sort of hobbies, like say he likes to play baseball, you can celebrate his wins or accomplishments there, that sort of thing, especially if you can celebrate them in front of anyone, like bringing up a compliment in front of your parents when you're there for a visit, or if you're out for drinks with a friend, anything like that, like bringing it up in person is big. I mentioned earlier, letting him see you happy. So when he does something that makes you happy, like let him see that. Let him know, like just smile for Christ's sake, or laugh. Some of us get going in life and we just get so caught up in everything we have to do in like raising the kids and getting our jobs done and cleaning the house and all these things that we forget to laugh. I might mess up the statistic, but children laugh like 400 and I want to say it's like 430 times a day or something. It was obscene. It was like in the hundreds for sure. And I think they said adults laugh on average 15 times a day. It was definitely less than 20. Like we just get caught up in our own crap. So make sure that when he does something, you're just expressing that emotion. And that's your feminine energy anyway, to be expressive in the moment of what you're feeling. And then the last one that I wrote down, now there are many ways, so don't feel like this is an inclusive list or anything like that, or an exhaustive list. But showing appreciation, making sure you say thank you, making sure you say I'm grateful for. I know I'm trying to think of like if I mentioned this last week. I feel like I might have mentioned it on our last episode. But anyway, I was with someone one time and I was very he said something to me that was upsetting. Like he wasn't being mean to me, but we were talking about something, and basically he wanted to lead us in a direction that I wasn't ready to go in our relationship. And so I cried, even though like I could feel in the moment. Do you ever have those moments where like intuitively you feel like, okay, he's right here, but this is shocking and it's different than what I was planning on. And so I'm just feeling my feelings. So I started crying, and I just kind of like buried my face. I will cry in front of people, but I don't necessarily like to be on display. So I'm like, just anyway, he said, what if we just go sit on the couch? And I said, okay. So we moved from the table to the couch, and like I kept my back to him, like he was over here, and I just was like holding his arm this way. And he kept trying to, I mean, not like rudely or anything, but he kept trying to talk to me and figure out what was going on, and was there anything he could do to solve it. And I kind of go silent. And so I just kind of stayed there and kept crying. And it took me until like a day or two later, but I finally said to him, I said, thank you so much when I was upset the other night for giving me space but not leaving me alone. And he said, yeah, of course. Like why wouldn't I? But I think those are important moments to acknowledge and show appreciation of, because not everybody's capable of doing that for me in my life. And I love that. Like, I do not want to speak when I'm overwhelmed with emotion because I have trouble coming up with the words. And when I was younger, I would say things I would totally regret and not even mean after all of the emotion had passed. So I've learned that I just want to feel the emotion, but not necessarily say anything. So for him to do that, but not leave me alone, not be like, well, fine, if you're not going to talk to me, then I'm going to go do my own thing. When you're ready, come back to me. Like, he held the space. And that was wonderful. So showing appreciation was another thing. And then the last thing I do want to add is, I had a client recently, and she was having a lot of trouble coming out of this independence stage, because she's been independent for so long. And nothing felt genuine to her as she started to speak. And she's already in a relationship. So she's like, if I start showing up and doing this, he's going to be like, what the hell happened? Like, why are you being so weird? So I told her, I said, one of the things you can do if words are hard for you at first is just hold on to his bicep. Touching the man's bicep, you could touch his chest too. That activates that masculine energy in that area right there. And so instead of, like, say you're out in public walking down the grocery aisle, instead of holding hands like you normally do or just being next to each other, hold his bicep instead. Or if you're laying in bed, run your fingers across his chest like this a little bit, stuff like that. And you can do that to start getting more comfortable with the energy and start moving yourself into it in a more gentle way if it doesn't feel, I don't want to say doesn't feel safe, but if it just feels too awkward for you to try to say it.
Yeah, it's a new skill. It's a new habit. People think, well, I mean, the ultimate pattern is this is the ideal. We grew up in a great family. What we learn just by default, we then go out and repeat. And that's how the beautiful plan is meant to work. It doesn't, though, for almost everybody. Even people that came from really good childhoods are like, I don't understand. My parents raised me really well. I went to the best schools. I have a really good job. I don't understand why I can't make relationships work. And often it's just a balance or just an understanding. And what I teach my clients about clothes, and even when I did used to do dating and relationship coaching back in the day, it comes down to, like, how you feel and then building a skill and realizing that we're in this together. We're in this conversation together. Like, if you go on a first date, you're there together. A conversation, whether it's by text, email, phone, whatever, you're doing it together. And realizing that we may not have got the skills for this conversation or for this relationship when our parents were younger. They were younger. And when we were younger, it was different. They didn't even have cell phones. I've got a 12-year-old daughter. She has got a cell phone that is, like, glued to her hand. And it is next level. And I sent a meme to a girlfriend the other day. Remember the times when we used to have to press one button 3 times to get the letter we wanted when we were texting? Like,
yes.
Remember that? I remember if you put the wrong letter and you'd be like, oh.
Okay, so my mom actually almost still texts like that. So, like, I don't text with abbreviations anymore, except for maybe LOL. Because if you start typing the word, it gives you the word right away in the little thing. But my mom still does could, like CLD. And remember how we used to have all those abbreviations? So you didn't have to type everything out. Yeah. Anyway.
Like, that skill we learned to press that button 3-4 times. Oh my God, especially with the weird letter and stuff. Or even we used to have a limit on how many words we could have on the screen. Or text message at one point were like 20 cents. And I think MMS, which people don't even say anymore, were like 50 cents, and like so much. But that skill that we learned then, our parents didn't get it. We learned our own skill. Is it relevant now? No. And so, I try to, well, I don't think.
Can you see on your, okay, so I have the thing set up that we're going live through. Can you see the comments from the Facebook users? It just says Facebook user, by the way, whoever's on here. You can't see them?
Nah.
Okay, well, I have to tell you, she says, seriously, first time I ever got in trouble was because I went over my text and it cost 25 cents each. So,
And like, or you get it cut off and you're like, but the next text is very important. And I remember my stepdad being like, I don't understand why you need to send 8 messages just to organize to see each other. And it, there's so much. But what it was is that was a skill and we were learning things and we were learning in relationships with our friends and stuff at that point as
mhm.
teenagers. And my daughter's learning very different skills, and so where I've got an open house, we have conversations, but I also remind myself, even when I see memes like that and I share it with a couple of girlfriends and we're like spank our leg laughing because we're like, oh my goodness, remembering that that skill that we learned is not relevant today. And so the skills that I learned in my childhood or my parents learned or my parents advice that they want to give me in terms of relating in relationships, relate sometimes a situationship is a dationship, but that skill that we learned then may not be relevant, or where the things that used to happen, like my grandparents, they met and fell in love. My grand's love her to pieces. She got asked by 2 guys to the dance. One guy had driven an hour to see her and he was at the front door. The other one was a local boy who came to the back door. It's like her favorite story ever, because her mum said to her, you got yourself in the situation, you get yourself out. And so she obviously chose the back door, the local guy, because that's my papa. They met, like that was the decision at that point. They met, they fell in love, they moved from one house, there's one house in the middle, to the next house. It's like one house away. And they lived there for 60 years and they've only just like left that. They haven't gone to a retirement, they've gone to my mom's house. But the things that they learned and like in their relationships and stuff and how that worked, and even how like Nana John said that to her and how Gran repeats that to us, that doesn't happen here. I've got one house door, like entrance, there's no back door where I am because I've got balconies. And that skill that she learned, or the things that she learned, like maybe going to that dance when her and Papa fell in love, or the things that she learned in her hometown, and some of the relationship skills that she's got. And like I write to her all the time and she'll often say to me, I don't understand. Like she didn't understand how my parents' relationship went. She was like, I do not understand. She's like, I don't get it. And it's because it was a different skill set required. Well, this is what I think. This is everything that I look at. To me, I just wanted to, like with the guys at work, their job is to say yes. My job is to get them to say yes. This is their job. I didn't make them do this. And so that's the finest detail of it. And in relationships and dating and communication and doing all these things, for me, it's like, what is the reverse engineer piece of it? And sometimes it is things like remembering, and I've had this conversation actually with an ex. I'd get home and I'm like that kind of energy, and I'm like literally shoulders up, like clenched. I'm like walking in with my daughter. It's not her fault, it's just a day. And I've had these conversations with my daughter. When I pick her up, if I'm really stressed, it's not her. But when I got home, I would ask him if he was home first, to just as little baby things to help me not be that person that I had to be all day in my day job. Like I had to tell men all day what to do. And I wasn't a specialist. I was just an office professional. So I can't do their job. So it was like this interesting balance that I had to really step inside. And when I wanted to melt when I came home, but I would still have this armor up.
Mhm.
So I would say to him, hey, I've got a couple of ideas and I'm also open to other ideas, because he came up against that armor so much and he would hate it. And I was like, pour me a glass of wine, wrap your arms around me, touch my arm. Like, this is one of the things that I've loved the most about learning was women, we get so in our brains or above, we just get so hyped and in this energy and this drive, and because we're trying to make our bodies build these biochemicals so we can get through the day and get all this stuff done, especially if you're a single mom building a business, having a day job, building multiple incomes, saving for retirement, figuring things out, and what's my waxing schedule, like everything. Like one thing that I have learned as a super skill, I think this is a super skill. men are in their bodies. And so I often say to men, even like on a first date, a trick with me to help me tap out of that independence and into interdependence and to be here, just touch me. Bring me back to my body. He's already in his, so he already knows and he's already like that. And I may be like, rushing around doing things. Just here's your wine, or like depending on what day, Thursday's always going to take a wine. Or, Monday it'll just be like he'll make me put my bags down, just wrap his arms around me, just touch. Or if we're at a cafe and I'm like for whatever reason, just, if my arm's there, just touch. And I appreciate that. So he's being my hero, which is the fun piece in this, because it's in him. I've given him some instructions because I'm obsessed with learning, so I know how it works. And I'm like, hey, I know you're going to be up against my armor. I know you're going to be there. And I'm going to say, this is going to be really easy. Just touch my hand, touch my arm, wrap your arms around me. Don't worry about how upset I am at all, because you're about to fix it. Don't worry about what I'm saying. Don't worry about how much I'm crying. Don't, you can hear it. And if you want to have the conversation with me about it, if you think you're going to fix it, if it's my work stuff, like if I come home and I bring you my day and I'm like, what? Like I was going to spit it all out. You can listen to it if you want. You can try and give me some advice. It's not going to work. To be my hero is just going to bring me back into my body, bring me back into, I'm in front of you. Help me be here, because sometimes my job and my business in the world expects me to be more than I am. And I am a little being, like I don't have much to me. So it can be really stressful to try and do all the things and try and be the big person at work so I can look authoritative. And I just need him to be my hero and say, hey, I got you. I hear you. Touch my hand, touch my arm, have made dinner, made plans. The amount of times where a man, and I know this is a taboo conversation, where a man is like, what do you want to do? Don't ask me. If I have just been at work all day, it's 6:30 at night and it's a Thursday or a Friday night, don't ask me for plans. I have just organized everything for so many other people. My job is demanding. Being the mom, the way I take my role seriously is super demanding. If you make plans, I will eat it. I'll eat it. Okay.
So I used to be in this relationship, and he was great about this because he loved to cook and stuff. And I remember just telling him, as long as it doesn't have mushrooms, and really, I'm going to say no Chinese food, because I'm not big on Asian food in general, whatever type it is. So if you're going to do Asian food, at least ask me first to make sure I'm in enough of a mood. But yes, I will seriously eat almost anything to not have to think about the grocery store, to not have to cook it. And it's not that I don't like cooking and stuff. It's that it's too much added on to my day. So seriously, just do it for me. And I loved it. He would say things like, what are you in the mood for? And he would ask, I'm trying to remember, he sent me this text one time, and I remember it was so amazing. I screenshotted it at the time and sent it to my best friend, because he said something along the lines of do you want something light or something, I want to say emotional. That's not the word he used, but are we trying to solve an issue here? What's some heavy carbs? What are you in the mood for? But the way he asked it was so sweet. And it was so nice because I still didn't have to decide, but just having that in front of me, I was yeah, something light. And then I showed up and he had made a steak salad, which was perfect.
Yeah. And it was no, because you're available for him to offer. Mm-hmm. I think set it up. You got to set him up. You have to set up your men for success. This is another conversation, but often we're not setting up our men for success. I'm obsessed with information, so I want to know how I work, because I want the best out of it, and I want the best out of all the people. And then I'm going to be like, honey, if you keep talking to me the way that you are and we keep dating and stepping forward, I'm going to give you the keys to the kingdom. I know how I work, and I'm going to give you a list, and you're going to be floored because I get so busy. I forget I work like this, and you will save me, and it's going to blow your mind because it's going to be so simple. And I'm just going to be oh my God, you stole my heart. like with anything, whether it's like literally a snack when I get home. I don't have time for dinner and I'm going out or doing something, like there's a snack on the table. I will cry because I'm like, oh my God, I'm so hungry. I went on a date with one guy and he had a feeling I hadn't had anything to eat. I had a really busy day. I drove to his house. I drove the wrong way for 30 minutes. It was so overwhelming. And I got there and we did all these other things and we like got ready, got the babysitter, went out. We were there and he's like, have you eaten today? And I was like, no.
It's so sweet that he asked.
And he's like, would you like me to get you something? What would you like? And I was like, I'll eat anything you bring me back. And he was like, really? And I was like, I know I'm a fussy person and I'm very particular and I'm obsessed with information and stuff. But at the same point in time, whatever you think I will eat it. I am not that fussy. I literally eat it. And so he went and like got this cute little sandwichy bun thingy. We were like at a work event and I sat there and I was so satisfied. And he was just like, you're so organized and independent and all the things. And he just started to realize that there was like little things he could do for me that just like floored me. And I was like, I don't need somebody to like change the color of the sky. Somebody to just make me a sandwich or offer, you know, like little things. And that's him being a hero for me and me obviously getting to eat and not like die.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say, I went on this first date one time with this guy. So I'm a pretty open book. And usually I talk with them for at least a couple of days online. I try not to talk more than a week if I'm doing like online stuff without them asking me on a date. But anyway, he asked me on a date the day that I was supposed to start my period cycle. And I pay very close attention to my cycle and flowing through that energy. So I knew right away. And he's like, you know, what do you want to do? Whatever. And normally I'll just leave it up to them. But since I knew it was the first day of my period cycle and he was asking, I was like, well, it's the first day of my period. I literally just let him know in the message. And I was like, I would really like to take a walk along the river and have ice cream. He's like, okay, where do you want it from? And I was like, Whitey's. And I told him what I wanted. And he just showed up with Whitey's and we took a walk. Now he ended up being super feminine. And it didn't go anywhere, obviously, because I'm looking for a masculine man. But it was some great girl talk for about 2 hours, some ice cream and some movement on the first day of my cycle. But so there's like ways to, I guess the reason I was bringing that up is it's okay to be direct with what you need. Like you don't always want to be because you don't want to come across as like telling him what to do. But it's a relief to a man to not have to guess. And when you can tell him, and even if you just tell him a few times in different things, like you're dating, you should be anyway, dating an intelligent enough man to pick up on that and start knowing how to do it in the future without you telling them every single time. So if like every time it comes around to your period cycle and you're like, let's get ice cream, like he's going to pick up on that. And at some point in the future, he's going to be like, you want to go grab ice cream, hun? Like when you're upset or whatever's going on. And then that feels really good. And he'll start gifting to you in different ways like that. And I don't know how you've experienced it, but I know for me, the more someone gifts to me, like I just totally gift to them.
Mm-hmm.
I remember seeing a TikTok from a guy that said, he was like kind of chastising men, but he was talking about how like women love so much more than men. And if men would learn how to just show up and start the process of loving the woman, they would be showered in love and attention. But instead, these men sit back and they're like, she's not doing anything for me. What's she going to do for me? And it's like, it's not really our job to start the process.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you kind of can. Like, there's a give and a take and blah, 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 whatever. We can have that conversation if you want to. But it's the masculine that leads. And the safer, see, and this is a whole nother conversation too, like the safer they make you feel as they're leading and they're creating that container. Like you said earlier, you just melt and you open up. I think you said keys to the kingdom is how you said it. And it's so true. Like if you can trust the person you're with, if I can trust, I'll take it back to myself. If I can trust the person I'm with, I am a way different person than anybody else gets to experience with me.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's something I had to learn as an adult because early on when I first entered the coaching industry, I don't know what this bullshit around authenticity was that I was learning or specifically where I learned it from. But
Yeah.
however I learned it, the way that I internalized it was if I'm really authentic, I will show up as me no matter what situation I'm in. So I had this idea that like I was this specific thing and it didn't matter if I was in front of my mom, if I was in front of my husband, or if I was in front of my friends, kids, whatever at work. I needed to be showing up the same way. Otherwise, I wasn't being authentic.
Mm-hmm.
And it took me, I mean, it took getting divorced and stuff before I realized, holy shit, my energy is reactive to the people around me. And that's not necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah.
Because it is me protecting myself a little bit, but it's also me being respectful of people around me. You know,
Yeah.
because not oh, for Christ's sake, I'm a sex, love, and intimacy coach. Not everybody wants to talk about sex with me.
Yeah.
It's like I can't always just show up being that spunky. Sometimes I need to be a little more classy. Let's put it that way.
It's true, and not everybody's available for the information. Like I don't broadcast what I do to anybody. People will often, like this week, I went to a class, and the girls, I walked in, they were like, "You always walk in looking like a dream. What do you do for a job?" And
Actually.
I was like, "Well, I." At least it's a conversation because it's like for me it's a relationship, the space between us, and this is how I see it always. This person's here, I'm here, and the space between us is what we nurture. I don't need to push my ideas onto you, even though I got plenty. I'm just waiting for the right piece in our relationship. And I think that's a skill set, and that's the same with, the hero's journey and activating the hero in our men or people that we work with, the man at the grocery shop, the man at the servo, like wherever you go, he often wants to fix things. He wants to be the hero. He wants to do these things. And I've learned to not be too much in front of some people. And I've learned, like, in conversations to see how it's evolving and to give information or provide or reciprocate in ways that are like healthy for it, which can be hard with men because there is a lot of stuff where men are getting misinformation a lot about sex, love, and intimacy and dating or relationships. But
Mhm.
I think sometimes if we make ourselves available to know that we could activate that, or to know that, what we do for a living or anything like that, like the information is sort of like right there, and it's a conversation and it's a relationship, it's in a skill that we've got, and the way that we show up kind of matters, if that makes sense. Like being available to be saved is also important. Like you could want to activate the hero instinct in a man and then turn him down, and that's going to crush his soul because he just wanted the best for you. And I feel like there are a lot of men in that situation that are just like, whew, I tried that in the past and it didn't work.
Yeah, and I think one of the things I said we were going to talk about today was like who you might not want to activate the hero instinct with. And I think, I mean, you can speak more to this. I know we were talking about it before we actually got on here, but like the people that are just maybe not in a more healed masculine. So maybe it's a little more toxic, maybe it's just more wounded and not necessarily toxic, but because the hero instinct activates in them and it like touches their ego, you need someone who's emotionally intelligent, someone who's mature and like gets that. Because if you're just, let's say, activating the ego in a narcissist, like that's not going to be a good thing. That's not going to create the relationship you want. Yeah, maybe I shouldn't have brought up narcissism. I know that both of us have experienced relationships with people that had very strong narcissistic tendencies.
Well,
So,
I try and activate the hero in a person who's narcissistic. I think it creates obsession.
I think that's fair because in someone who's got those narcissistic qualities, they're feeding off of your energy for their ego. So it's like it's inflating them, but it's inflating them in an unhealthy way because they're just pulling that energy back to them to be inflated. Whereas if you're doing it with someone who's healthy, it's like making them feel good about themselves. So then they're turning around and giving you more love. Like it's this cycle that gets activated instead of just more take, take, take. I love the way this makes me feel because I'm the best.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Ending on a high note.
No, I think it's important. I have this conversation a lot with a lot of people. And like even the way that you dress, believe it or not, can communicate whether you're in your masculine and your feminine, and the way that you hold your body posture. And you can literally do things around a man that will help activate is that hero instinct when you change the way that you dress. Or like if you've got on like a tailored suit and you've been at work, you take your jacket off and you've got like a more feminine top on, it's going to change the way he's reacting to you. Like
I used to wear specific, I've done this with every guy I've been with in a long-term relationship with. I've known what their favorite outfits are that I wear. And like, they'll know when I walk in, oh, you're wearing that top that I love. I guess I know what you want tonight. Or, oh, you're showing up in that dress. I guess you want me to take you out, sort of thing. And I'm like, nice. Let's do it. I love to play though. I am a very feminine person. And so I love to play. I don't mind being direct at all. I'm a manifester with my human design type. So I definitely inform and I can be direct, but I love to play. And so when I can do things in nonverbal ways, I think it's very fun.
I think all women love to play. Like, I don't remember the last time I had a conversation with somebody about clothing color, style, or dress, or anything like that, where they're like, oh, well, I don't want to do that. I want to wear a uniform. No, they would want to wear a uniform only if they don't want to spend the time and energy to go through their wardrobe, if they don't have their wardrobe set up for them and their lifestyle. It's just a skill. It's the same as like the activating the hero instinct, or wearing clothes that kind of create the mood, whether it's like literally a soft flowing feminine dress or like a more sharp hard hitting like angled line catsuit, like whatever it is, like you can actually play with that and have like, and I say this to a lot of clients who are really struggling, like, who do you want to be today? Do you want to be happy? These colors are going to activate this. Wear some yellow, put on some orange. Do you want to wear some pink? If you wear soft pink, it's going to come across as like you may not be as authoritative. If you wear like hard-hitting magenta pink, people are going to notice you and they're going to pay attention to you. And so you can influence yourself, and then you can influence other people. Like, you can't be sad wearing yellow. It's really hard. Like, it really has like an energetic on us. Like, it really does. Like, I know that you can be sad, but you can't be sad for long because it has an influence. And those colors will have an influence around men as well. Like, if you are, we know if you dress a certain way, it gives off a certain thing. But also at the same point in time, men are real visual and they're actually really instinctual. So they know, and this is a whole other wounded feminine thing, but a woman's going to make an assumption based on what she's wearing. A man is going to make a different kind of assumption because he's very aware if she's actually putting across that message. And I love this conversation because often a woman who's in a wounded feminine or whatever is going on for her, she's going to straight up judge that person and be like, this is what you're after. But the man is visually taking all the information in and he's energetically, instinctually taking in the information. And he's like, she looks like she wants stuff, but energetically doesn't. Whereas the woman is straight away, taking what she's been marketed and commercialized around as the communication piece. So men are actually really smart in terms of like visual aesthetics and stuff. Like, talking to a man about what you wear and how you feel about that, even that's going to activate the hero instinct in him. He's going to be like, wow, this is what I noticed. And, you know, you can have this really good conversation about when you go out or when you hang out or what turns them on or what turns them off. And you guys can, you know, build that bridge there and that communication. But you're coming to him for like a conversation and a bit of help and a bit of perspective. And I know he knows. Men just don't say it. I ask the question. They're like, how do you know I know? I'm like, I was watching. And I know, you know.
I talked to a client recently and she was talking about how she dresses for her partner. And like she said, you know, she gets some crap from her friends. Like, you shouldn't be dressing for him. You should be dressing for yourself. And she's like, what the fuck do I care? I'm not looking at it. He's looking at me. She's like, he's the one who's going to see it all day long. And he's picking from my clothes. So it's already something that I like. So why do I care if it's going to make him happy? I'm happy to dress for him. And I thought, wow, that is so cool because it's true. Like, I love to dress for the men I'm with too. When I know, like, not every day, it depends on my mood and what trumps it, right? Like, if I'm like, I just wake up and I feel like I want to put that dress on and I know it's not his favorite. Well, too bad, so sad. He's losing out that day because I want to wear my dress, you know? So it's not like he's controlling what I'm wearing. But at the same time, if he says, hey, babe, do you want to go out this Friday night? I'm going to be like, ooh, I'll wear that one I know that he loves because when I show up, he's just going to light up. And I love feeling adored. What the hell's wrong with that, you know? So yeah, I think outfits play a big part in everything. Maybe we should, I made a note about that. Maybe we should talk about it in a future episode. Like first date sort of outfits, stuff like that. Just kind of like, so I'm going to say this real quick because I know we're wrapping up. And this is a little off topic, but I kind of show up in whatever on first dates. I know people have lots of opinions on like, if you're a high value woman, you should be showing up this way, or you should be only accepting these type of dates and stuff. But my personal belief on all of this is like, I am who I am and I know who I am. So in order for him to know I'm high value, I don't actually want him to ask me out to a fancy restaurant and to sit through a whole dinner. One, because if he shows up and it turns out to be a dud, I do not want to be stuck there for 2 hours and be feeling bad about the fact that he's now paying tons of money for a dinner when it's going absolutely nowhere, you know? But two, because I don't actually like going to fancy restaurants. Once in a blue moon, I might be like, I find this super awesome dress and I'll be like, can you take me out here or something? But I am not that person. I am so much more of a homebody and I'm so much more of, please make me a meal at home that I love.
Mm-hmm.
That tastes good, you know? Like, please let me relax. Please let me be in my yoga pants. Like, so I'm going to be way more casual on a date.
Yeah. And men are the same. Men always ask, like, oh my God, you're going to judge my outfit? Or, you know, what does a woman think of this? Like, they're actually really, really interested. And I have the same response no matter whether we're going out to dinner, I'm going with a girlfriend, it's a date, whatever it is. You need to wear clothes that make you comfortable because that's going to bring out your true essence. And every time a man... it gives something to them when they know it makes you happy, which is tapping into sort of the hero instinct. But if you also just want them to be happy and you genuinely communicate that, like, that's so beautiful. You know, you're just allowing them to just be who they are and accepting of that, because there is a big chunk of their life where they're not accepted to be who they are. Like that horrible series that's going around about when you're really sad, who do you call? Or when you're, you know, in your worst moments, who do you call? And there was like this series of men that were like, I don't call anybody. Do you call people? And there was like, I watched 20 men see this question and just go, I don't call anybody. So if we're able to show up in such a way of like being loving and accepting, and especially around physical appearance, because men have a lot of pressure too, and we help them either, you know, step into the hero instinct for whatever reason, or the hero's journey, or what have you, there's only going to be benefits like from that point, because they are so judged. But if we love them for who they are, look out. He's going to actually sweep you off your feet.
I know men need to be accepted for who they are just as much as we do. Like it is across our society right now that people feel like they need to be a certain way or have certain qualities and things like that. And so men too want to know that it's okay for them to show up in their steel-toed boots. Like it's okay if that's who
or,
they are and that's what they're comfortable in. Cool.
or that they're 5, or they don't have like massive biceps or what have you. Like I try to remember this because I don't think like a man. I just try and observe and pay attention. Men are measuring everything, measuring everything. They'll ask you questions about something. You're like, I don't know, because we don't measure stuff. Sometimes we compare things, but we don't measure things. And they're always measuring themselves against the past history information that you've shared with them about your past relationships. They're measuring themselves against the information that you're providing for them. Like, can I step into the role that she wants me to, etc., etc. And they're always measuring themselves against what's a standard, which we know doesn't exist, but we're still fed this information. We're still fed, like there's jokes about like men's measuring versus women's measuring. Like, 4 inches, it's a man's versus a woman's 4 inches. And how, like, I understand the joke, but I also think it's a little bit cruel because men are expected to live up to certain standards which don't exist in reality. Like, that's just like one type of person. That's like expecting all women to look like a fashion model. Fashion models don't look like fashion models. Like, look at them on their off day. Even they're just like, no, well, that's what I really look like. All those time lapses where they turn up into the studio and then they get ready, and then you see the photos, and then you see the airbrush photos that go in the magazine. Like, models don't look like models. Men don't look like the standard that they're told that they need to be. But we measure ourselves against that model standard, whole of the conversation. But men are always measuring themselves. And we can help that a little bit and realize, what's going on for them, what they're sort of like up against. Like, it's in here, but it's also really in here. Like, they really actually feel stuff. They just don't tell us. They just don't say anything because they're not taught to say anything. And they will all tell you that, like, if you ask, which is funny about that. They'll tell you that they were told not to say anything. They weren't even growing up around, like, back to skills about how it's a skill to build these things inside our relationships with our people. They didn't get the skill of relating like us women do. Like, do you remember being at high school? Like, your friends were your life. And we would do all of the relational type stuff. We'd look at magazines, we'd hang out, we'd laugh, we'd share, intimate personal stories. Men make jokes and they look at things that are set up in a particular way, like movies or books or things that I can't say that starts with P, and then they get their instructions from that.
And we're on YouTube.
Other things that are not accurate for them, and so they don't always communicate. And it's just a skill that's a skill that they learned, but it's a new skill that they can learn to communicate with you, and it's a skill we can learn in terms of activating the hero instinct. And I think the most important thing is that we're not coming from a place of manipulation and wanting to do it. Like, that we're genuinely coming from a place of love, like for this moment, like, no matter what I'm doing, and remembering he gets a biochemical kick in this, and I get a glass of wine, or he gets to feel like he's needed in my life, and he is, but I may not act like it because I've just got so much independence and stuff built into me, and it's been like my whole life and blah, 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 blah. But he's going to feel needed, and I'm going to get a benefit out of it. Like, it is such a win-win. And to want to come to our men like this, like, it gives me chills. Like, to just want to love them so much that we will learn skills that give us both good stuff. Like, nobody's going to get anything bad out of that. You're going to get a glass of wine. You're going to get a hug. You're going to, if he touches your arm, he's going to bring you back into your body, and you're going to look him in the eye, and he'll see you come back into your body, and he is going to look into your eyes and just be like, there you are. Oh, it gives me chills because it's a skill but it's also so easy to do. And sometimes it's just a matter of practicing that. And you can even say to him, hey, I heard about this thing called the hero's instinct. Want to try it? And men like trying things. You know, if you give him something to like measure like his success against, because they like measuring, you can give him some examples of stuff that you've seen or conversations that you've had. And if he loves you, which hopefully he does, he's probably going to want to show up that way. And like, how beautiful, right? Like, good guys really are good guys. They really want to show up. And sometimes they just need us to set it up sometimes. And I say this because, I mean, if you're listening to this, you probably care. And I know a lot of people and your clients as well will often be like, why do I have to be the one to do this stuff? Well, he's not looking at this, you are, which means there's something in this for you. But that doesn't mean to say that you both can't benefit and come at this as though, what if my life could be better? What if our lives could be better? And what if it's just a skill? I might need to unlearn something and learn some new things. But like the heroes, like activating the hero's instinct, once you figure it out, just a little couple of tests, it's really easy. And it's successful over and over and over again, because there are so many ways you can play this. Like with men that I've been in relationships and dating, I drink one type of drink. If we go to a bar and you order it for me, I'm going to be on your arm all night. And if you buy me two, because I'm getting like, if like I'm getting to the end of that one and you like wait to get me and you want to like ask me if I was enjoying that kind of flavor because it's a wine, and then just order me automatically one, I'm just going to be like, putty in your hands. You know, he saved me and it was like this setup and I was available, and how beautiful, right? Like there's so many ways we can do this, and we're doing it together. We both get this. Like, he's not just doing stuff and he's separate to it. Like, he's there with you. He's the person who did that for you. He's the person that made that smile, that like lit up your heart, that he'll see your eyes welcome him. He'll see like your body like melt down, and he'll be like, oh my goodness, I think it's going to get closer to that. Like it just becomes so delicious, and it builds that solid container foundation of, like we talked about last week, that bookshelf or that container, because he's bought the wine and he's ordered whatever, he's made the decision. Or you could have the conversation before you get to dinner, be like, hey, I want the chicken. And he's going to be like, got it. And he's going to be like the master of the table, but you've set him up for success and you get your chicken. Like none of this feels wrong because you still get all the things you actually wanted. But he's, you know, because some guys like that. They want to order for you, and that's cool. But sometimes you want to have salmon. So you're allowed to have the conversation in the car and work out what feels good for you both. Because at the end of the day, like that container that he provides and you being the love that fills it up, or the love on the bookshelf, because a bookshelf makes so much sense to me, because you can put anything you want on it. You're not limited. You can go high, you can go low, and a whole other symbolic things. But you're both going to end up feeling good. And okay, like let's do that.
Yeah, and like what I'm hearing when you say that is foreplay. I mean, honestly, that's foreplay for me. I mean, people think about foreplay as like this touchy thing and whatever, just to like activate yourself, but it feels so much better if you do foreplay through connection and intimacy throughout the day, because it just naturally flows into this instead of like making it happen.
Yeah.
But anyway, thank you so much for talking all day with me about the hero instinct. I made some notes here of some possible future topics. If you're watching this, be sure to leave a comment and let us know some of the ways that you really enjoy activating the hero instinct in your man. And of course, leave us any questions or comments, other comments that you might have. And be sure to subscribe so that you get notifications every time we go live for a new episode. Thank you.